Okay, so I want you to picture a moment, and I think every single person listening has experienced this.
Oh, yeah.
You're sitting in a class, or maybe it's one of those mandatory corporate training sessions. You are trying. You're listening to the lecture, you're nodding along, taking notes. You feel pretty confident.
You think, I've got this.
I've got this, and then comes the test.
Then comes the test.
Uh,
Or the final project.
yes, or the moment your boss asks you to actually do the thing you just spent 3 hours learning. And suddenly it feels like the exam was written in, I don't know, alien hieroglyphics.
That is the classic disconnect. I taught you A, but now I need you to do B.
Exactly. And it makes you want to scream. You feel tricked. You feel like the instructor was hiding the ball, or worse, you just feel stupid.
That's not you.
It's not you. We've got a stack of research here today that suggests in something else entirely. It's not that you're bad at learning. It's that most people are, well, really bad at designing the teaching.
It's a design flaw. Plain and simple. It's a failure of architecture.
So today, we are going to fix that architecture. We're doing a deep dive into the science of instructional design. We're looking at a session from an Instructional Skills Workshop, Module 2, Week 2, to be specific, led by a facilitator named Steve Chase.
And Steve walks us through two major frameworks that, honestly, they completely solve that frustration you just described. We're talking about constructive alignment and backward design.
I have to be honest, when I saw instructional design on the docket, I kind of braced myself for something dry, textbooks and compliance forms.
Sure.
But reading through this, it's surprisingly philosophical. It's almost therapeutic.
It really is.
Yeah.
Because at its heart, this isn't about paperwork. It's about empathy. It's about moving away from just covering content, which is what most of us do,
Right.
and moving toward building a supportive learning system.
A supportive learning system. Okay, that sounds great, but it also sounds a little like corporate buzzword salad. What does that actually mean?
It means we stop viewing teaching as a broadcast. Where a teacher thinks, I have knowledge, I will speak it at you, and hopefully you catch some of it. Steve Chase, and he's referencing the work of Biggs and Tang here, he calls for enveloping the learner.
Enveloping the
Yeah, think of it like a cocoon or a scaffold. You aren't just throwing information at them. You're surrounding them with a system where the goal, the teaching, and the test are so tightly interlocked that it's actually difficult for them not to learn.
Okay, that is a bold claim. Difficult not to learn. Is there proof that this actually works, or is this just, a nice theory?
There is. The source highlights this fascinating case study. It was an occupational therapy program.
Okay.
And OT programs are usually incredibly rigorous, really high stress.
Right. High stakes, a lot of burnout.
Exactly. And this program was struggling. Students felt lost. So they completely restructured their curriculum using this principle, this constructive alignment. They didn't just change the books, they changed the whole architecture.
And what was the result?
The results were stark. They reported significantly increased levels of student success. But what was more important to me was the psychological shift.
How so?
Student satisfaction shot up. They started saying things like the units felt well taught and that the requirements were clear.
See, that's the part that really hits home for me. The requirements were clear. I feel like 90% of the anxiety I've ever felt in school or at work wasn't because the material was hard. It was because I didn't know what the target was.
Precisely. In an online course, you're wasting all this energy trying to guess what the teacher wants.
Right.
In an aligned course, that energy is freed up to actually learn. Steve Chase calls these aspirational statements that we want students to feel successful. It's a principle that guides everything.
So if constructive alignment is the philosophy, the why, then we need to get into the how, because I think most of us, myself included, have a very specific habit when we need to teach something.
Let me guess. You open PowerPoint.
I open PowerPoint, I type introduction on slide 1, and then I think, okay, what do I know about this? And I just start dumping bullet points.
Right. That's what we call the content trap. You're focused entirely on the input. You think, I have to cover chapters 1 through 5. You're thinking about what you were doing, not what they are becoming.
And that leads right back to the disconnect we started with. I talk for an hour about chapter 1, realize I'm out of time, and just throw a random test question together about chapter 5.
Exactly. So Steve Chase introduces the antidote to that. Backward design.
Backward design, which sounds like we're literally doing the job in reverse.
We are. And the source breaks this down into 3 really clear steps. And if you follow them, it's basically impossible to fall into that content trap.
Okay, lay it on me. What's step 1?
Step 1 is identify desired results.
Identify desired results. Okay, that sounds simple. I want them to learn about biology.
See, that's exactly what you can't do. Learn about biology is vague, it's mushy. In this framework, you need extreme precision. The source suggests this format called CABD.
CABD. Okay, wait, we need to stop here because when I see acronyms like this, my eyes just glaze over. It feels like administrative red tape.
I get it.
Why do we need 4 letters just to say, learn this?
Because language is slippery. Without a framework, you and the student might have totally different ideas of what success looks like. CABD stands for condition, actor, behavior, and degree.
Okay, give me an example. Let's get out of the classroom. Let's say, I want to teach you how to bake a cake.
Perfect example.
Yeah.
Bad objective would be, the student will bake a cake.
But why is that bad? If I bake a cake, I succeeded, right?
Did you? What if you bake a brick that tastes like salt? What if you used a pre-made mix, but I wanted you to bake from scratch? What if it takes you 12 hours? You technically baked a cake, but you failed the actual intent.
Okay, fair point. So how does CABD fix that?
Let's just break it down with a cake. Condition. Given a standard home kitchen and raw ingredients. Actor. The student. Behavior. Will bake a chocolate sponge.
And the last one.
Degree. That rises at least 2 inches and is fully cooked within 45 minutes.
Wow, okay. That is specific.
It's rigorous, but look at what it does. That last part, the degree, it's a game changer. Rises 2 inches, cooked in 45 minutes. Now there's zero ambiguity. You know exactly how to win.
So step 1 is locking down that super specific goal. I know exactly what the finish line looks like. Now, in my old way, this is when I'd start planning my lecture.
And you would be wrong. In backward design, you still don't get to plan the lecture. Step 2 is determine acceptable evidence.
Acceptable evidence. That sounds kind of legalistic.
It's just the assessment, the test, the project. You have to design the final exam before you design a lesson.
Well, hang on, I have to stop you. Writing the test before the lesson. Isn't that cheating? I mean,
No.
we always hear people complain about teaching to the test.
That is the most common objection. And we have this cultural baggage around teaching to the test being a bad thing. But Steve Chase and this whole framework, they flip that on its head. They argue that teaching to the test is only bad if the test is bad.
Okay, explain that.
If your test is just memorizing random dates, just trivial pursuit, then yeah, teaching to that is boring and shallow. But let's go back to our cake. Your test is bake a cake that rises 2 inches. If I spend my lesson teaching you exactly how to make a cake rise 2 inches, is that cheating?
No, that's just teaching me how to do the thing.
Exactly. If the outcome is a real-world skill, the assessment is just proving you have that skill. The lesson is just helping you get there. That is alignment.
So teaching to the test is actually the whole point, as long as the test measures something that actually matters.
Correct. And here's the aha moment from the source. Steve mentions that if you did a really good job on step 1 with that CABD objective, the assessment is almost baked into the learning outcome.
Because the degree literally tells you what the test is.
Yes. Rises 2 inches. That's your grading rubric right there. You don't have to invent a test later. The objective is the test.
Okay, I'm sold. We have the goal, step 1. We have the test, step 2. Now, finally, can I plan the actual class?
Yes. Now you get to step 3. Plan learning experiences. This is the fun part. The activities, the lectures, the group work. But now you have a filter.
And the filter is, does this activity help them bake that 2-inch cake?
Exactly. So if you were planning a lecture on, say, the history of flour,
Yeah.
you cut it. Because knowing the history of flour won't help the cake rise. It prevents busy work.
That is incredibly freeing. I mean, it's ruthless, but it's freeing.
It creates that supportive system. The student knows that everything they're doing is relevant. There's no gotcha at the end.
So that's the strategy, backward design. But there's another layer here in the source material that I found really interesting. It's the difference between design and delivery.
Yes. This is where a lot of people get tripped up.
Because the order we build the course in is different from the order we teach it in.
Right. It's like building a house versus giving a tour of a house.
Yeah.
You don't build the front door first. You start with the foundation. But the guest, they walk through the door first.
So let's talk about the tour, the delivery. The source gives us another acronym for this. BOPPPS. BOPPPS.
Yep. This is the chronological flow of a single lesson as the student experiences it.
Okay, let's walk through BOPPPS. Maybe not the cake this time. Let's say I'm training a new hire on how to use the complicated espresso machine in our office.
Perfect.
So B is for bridge. That's the hook.
Right. You grab their attention. Hey, tired of spending $6 on lattes? I'm going to show you how to make a better one for free.
O is objective.
You state the goal. By the end of this, you will be able to pull a perfect shot of espresso without burning the beans.
P is pre-assessment.
Check what they already know. Have you ever used a manual machine like this before?
Then the second P, participatory learning.
This is the meat of it.
Yeah.
You show them, they try it, you give feedback, the actual hands-on learning.
The third P, post-assessment.
The test. Okay, your turn. Make me a latte.
And finally, S, summary.
Great job. Now you're caffeinated. Go conquer the day.
That flow bridge, objective, pre-assessment, participatory, post-assessment summary, it feels very natural. That is how a class happens.
It is. But, and this is the critical part, that is not the order you designed it in.
Right. We already know from backward design that we do the outcome and the post-assessment first. But there's one specific part of the design sequence that really surprised me, the pre-assessment.
Ah, yes, where it fits in the planning.
In the BOP-PPS delivery, it happens right near the start. But the source suggests that when you're designing, the pre-assessment should be one of the very last things you create.
It sounds totally backward, doesn't it?
It does. My logic tells me I need to know who my students are before I plan anything. If I don't know what they know, how can I teach them?
That is the intuition. But that intuition leads you right into a trap.
What's the trap?
If you start with the pre-assessment, if you start by asking, what do you all know already? You risk tailoring the destination to the traveler instead of getting the traveler to the destination.
Oh, that's interesting. So I might actually lower the bar based on who's in the room?
Yeah, exactly. You might find out they know nothing about coffee, so you decide, you know what, let's just show them the Keurig. You've just abandoned your learning outcome.
I see. So you have to be stubborn about the destination first.
You have to lock down the outcome in the post-assessment. You say, we are going to the top of Mount Everest, period. Then and only then do you look at your students and say, okay, what gear do you have?
Because if I design the pre-assessment last, I can tailor it perfectly to the journey we're about to take.
Precisely. The source says the purpose of pre-assessment isn't just a random check. It is to engage students in what they already know to prepare them for the participatory learning.
So with the mountain analogy, if I know we are climbing Everest, which is my outcome, my pre-assessment question is, do you own crampons?
Right. But if you did it in the wrong order, you might ask first, hey, does anyone have a swimsuit? And then later realize, oh, wait, swimsuits are totally useless where we're going.
And now I've just wasted their time and confused them?
Exactly. It's a misalignment. By designing the pre-assessment last, you make sure even your opening questions are building that bridge toward the final success.
It all comes back to that closed loop system. Every single piece supports every other piece.
And that is what Steve Chase means by a supportive learning system. It's not supportive because it's easy. Climbing Everest isn't easy. It's supportive because the guide knows exactly where the path is and doesn't waste your energy walking in circles.
This really changes how I think about the role of a teacher or a manager or even a parent. We tend to think our value comes from being the smartest person in the room, the expert.
The sage on the stage.
Right. But this framework suggests our real value is actually in being a good designer, an architect.
There's a saying, clarity is a kind of kindness. And that really applies here. When you use backward design, you're being kind to your learner. You're making a promise.
What's the promise?
I know exactly where we're going, and I promise I won't waste your time on anything that doesn't get us there.
Now, I want to play devil's advocate for just a second before we wrap up. We've talked a lot about structure, objectives, evidence, assessments. It's all very engineered.
It is, yeah.
Is there a danger here? If we spend all our time obsessing over the bookends, the outcome, and the test, do we risk sucking the soul out of the middle part, the actual learning?
You mean, does hyper-efficiency kill the joy of discovery?
Yeah. I mean, some of my best memories in a classroom were when a teacher went off on a tangent or if we explored something totally unplanned. Does backward design just kill that spontaneity?
That is the ultimate tension.
Yeah.
For sure. But I would argue, and I think the source would agree, that structure actually enables creativity. It doesn't kill it. Well, think about a jazz musician. They can improvise like crazy because they know the underlying chord structure of the song perfectly. They know where home is so they can wander.
That makes sense.
If you don't have a plan, if you don't have a clear outcome, then going off on a tangent isn't exploring, it's just getting lost. But if you know exactly what the evidence of learning needs to be, you can be incredibly creative in how you get them there.
So the structure creates the safety you need to take risks.
Exactly. You could try a wild participatory learning activity, a game, a simulation, a debate, because you know exactly what it needs to achieve at the end. You aren't just winging it.
So the big message for you listening, whether you're rewriting a university syllabus or just trying to teach your teenager how to drive, is to stop starting with the content.
Stop thinking about what you're going to say. Start with what they need to be able to do.
Start at the end, define that acceptable evidence, and then work your way backward.
And envelop them in a system where success becomes the only logical outcome.
I love that. Success is the only logical outcome. That is a standard worth shooting for. Thanks for diving in with us on this.
Always a pleasure.
We'll see you on the next one.